The Mariners in the Asian Champions League was a pretty tough first up. I mean, what do you think that is? I know you've only just come back, but
it's obviously 4 years ago I was there, same boat. You know, we never won a game. I think we drew 2 games, but it was hard. You know, hard. We were fortunate or unfortunate, depends on where you look at it. Our season had finished, and to try and keep the boys taking over. And I thought they gave a good account of themselves and the A-League as well. So I think with that experience behind a lot of the players, going into next year, I think we're going to be a bit better for it. And I know it was well documented. Arnie was complaining about the draw at the time in the A-League because they'd Wellington, Perth. I think things will be looked at a bit more favourable for the Asian Cup teams next year, that they don't have so much travelling.
The Roar and the Mariners both seem to sort of go into Asia and really try and take it to other teams, while Adelaide sort of play only one up front, counter-attacking, and have done the best, but finished second bottom.
Yeah.
Do you think the way Australian teams should be playing? Should they be playing a bit more defensive when it comes to the Asian Champions League?
I think it depends the players they've got available at that time of the year as well. You know, Causey, I'm not exactly sure what the squad situation is like, but sometimes it's dictated to how you have to play with players available. I think both Brisbane and the Mariners will be better for it next year.
And Chinese football seems to be a pretty crazy place. You get corruption stings and ridiculous amounts of money coming in. What's it been like managing there?
I've enjoyed it. You know, that was my midlife crisis at 50. You know, instead of buying a red fancy car, I went to China with my wife. But it was, the 2 clubs we went, 2 different clubs. Chengdu Super League club, very unstable club, mental would be the best way to describe it. I called it the circus because the clowns were running their circus, and every day we used to go to training and Hutch and Close and Brendan Santalab and Jordan Sully there's what's the clowns up to today, because every day something else happened. But living there in Chengdu was great. The football side of things was very difficult, and that was one of the reasons to come home, because you get to the stage it's not worthwhile, and when you start getting dictated to that affects results on the park, as a coach you can't take it. We came back, and a few months later I got a phone call where they go back to Chongqing, which was quite close to Chengdu, and I nipped over there for the weekend, and they flew me over for an interview in a beautiful city, very stable club, all reports. And when I got there, that's how it was. The club was very professional, smaller club run by an individual. He found motors and motorbikes, and he was one of the richest guys in the city. And he knew nothing about football, didn't want to know nothing about football. He just gave them 4 or 5 million US every year to run the club. But then when the season started, things started. There was a bit of pressure getting put on about certain players who the club had signed that hadn't signed, who were ex-Super League players who were on big money, and then you start getting asked to play people. It's similar to Chengdu. You just go, well, this isn't the place for me. But a fantastic experience. I don't regret one moment of it.
And considering the big money that's on offer, it seems a lot more Australian players are going to China. Do you think that'll keep seeing that happening in the next couple of years?
No, definitely, because when you're looking at boys getting between 200,000 and 300,000 net, they can't earn that kind of money daily. So it's going to. I think the more the Aussie boys go there and do well, which they do, because their work ethic's good, they fit in with the local players well. Because they get a lot of Brazilians and European boys there, but some of them are a bit aloof and don't blend in as well with the local players. The Aussie boys fit straight in, and I think the more successful the boys are, the more they'll go there, definitely. It could be a drain on the A-League, but it could also be some good income for the clubs, because in certain times of years, the Chinese teams will pay a bit of a transfer for some of these guys as well.
How does the standard of football compare with the Chinese Super League to the A-League? I mean,
I know they're mixed reports. People saying the A-League's better. I think the standard's very good. And you see that in Asian Cup games and so on, where it's quite even between the teams. Players technically are very good, but it's the mental aspects that keep bringing up. But my own opinion is, I think the way the Chinese clubs treat the Chinese players, they don't give them any responsibility. They all live in a compound, not a compound, they all live in a complex, which is decent. They get their 3 meals a day looked after. They have to line up for breakfast, lunch and dinner. and they get the rooms checked at 10:30 at night, so it's too regimental for me. These players are humans, they're normal, they should be treated like that, and until they open that side of things up and change it, and to do that you need somebody to be there for 2 or 3 years and change the culture of a club, shows it's successful, and then that will change. But at the moment I think until they get that side of things sorted, I think it's always going to be a problem for Chinese football, because then they keep telling you about the players going out and they're not disciplined because they go out and get drunk midweek sometimes. That's because they've been locked up for a week, and then they'll go out and have a couple of beers and go off their heads. And then actually happened to Chongqing. I wonder why there were 2 Thursdays in a row, training on the Wednesday was brilliant, working on shape. 2 Thursdays in a row we've put the final team on the park, and we wonder why they were absolutely hopeless, and we're going, what's going wrong here? But then we did find out as we're leaving that the boys had 6 or 7 of the first team boys had drunk over 100 bottles of beer between them both nights, so then I explained it.
The A-League's gone through a lot of change since the time you've been out of the A-League. Obviously the sort of farcical situation in the Gold Coast. Have you got a view on what's happened?
It was just bad for the game. I'm from the beginning, being at working in the A-League from the very beginning, the first meeting I was there, and you don't want to see negative press, and obviously what happened in the Gold Coast became a bit farcical and stuff, and then the Newcastle situation. I'm just glad that the league needs Newcastle in there. Obviously you don't want to see any teams going in the Gold Coast. There are a lot of people shouting up and down now that they should have been saved or they should have been this or that, but they had ample time for supporters to get behind the team in the 3 seasons. They were getting, the crowds were saying 2,000 or 3,000 people, but a couple of games I was watching on Foxtel, there weren't that many people there, so they had the time to get people behind them. So I think for the long run, them going out and Western Sydney come in, I think it's going to be more beneficial for the league. Although, again, Gold Coast fans will hate me for saying that, and I'm sorry that I've said it, but that's just my opinion, that the game will be stronger in Western Sydney.
And there's been a lot of talk about potentially a separate body to run the A-League separate from the FFA. Do you think that's the way forward, or is it too soon, something like that now?
I don't know if it's too soon, but the NRL and the ARL have got separate differences, and I think with obviously FFA running Western Sydney, there are always going to be people saying that. They've said about Sydney FC because Frank Boy was involved in that. They're looking after their own team, so the way it's situated at the moment, I think it could be a good time to bring that in, because then it'll take any doubts away that Western Sydney are getting any favours done for them and stuff like that. So I think the game's been about 7 or 8 years now, it probably could handle that, but whether it has to be done now is another question. There are a lot more people better educated than me about that.
And the Mariners have been very successful in the 8 years of the A-League, probably arguably the most successful club. So consistent. Why do you think that's the case?
I think you just hit it in the head, consistent. We've had 2 coaches, myself for the first 5 years, Andy for the last 2, same CEO. We've changed very few staff, from the beginning, and I think consistency is the key. Although it's not always been easy up here, we've always the players, there's never been a huge turnover of players, it's always been quite a consistent squad. A reasonable bit of planning's always been many things. We just don't react to situations, and I think that's a big plus for the club. And the continuity has always been there, and not panicking with things.
The Central Coast Bears are trying to get into the NRL around 2015. Do you think, would that be a threat if they came into the Mariners?
Before I went to China, I'd met with Greg Formo on a number of occasions, and I know the clubs have been talking to each other, because we both know it's a hard gig up here to get support commercially. The fan support, they've got a lot of members, we've got a lot of members, so for that side of things is good. Obviously you can start looking at, we've got the centre of excellence across the road, I'm sure the chairman would love to get them involved over there. That would help commercially for us, but if they get in, I think we can work together at different seasons, and I'm sure with our experiences on and off the park could help them a long way. So I don't think it's a bad thing if the Bears come in. I'm sure we could work together, and I think it's just great for the Central Coast that they've got their own football team, their own rugby league team.